My name is Isabella Carter. I'm 34 years old, a former military combat medic, and a single mother to my 8-year-old daughter, Lily. For years, I believed I could survive anything. I had endured war zones, sleepless nights in deserts filled with gunfire, and the scars that came with serving my country. Lily lowered her eyes to her plate. I'm not starting anything. Lily heard it. If she's going to cry all night, take her outside. Control panic. My family didn't think they'd done anything wrong. I wrapped Lily in blankets near the fireplace while my mother avoided eye contact. No one apologized. Not one person. Instead, Claire muttered, "It was just a joke." My daughter had been thrown into a dangerous storm, and they called it a joke. I stood slowly. Mason rolled his eyes. "Oh, please, Isabella. Stop acting like a soldier. Bad choice." In the military, we learned to stay calm before confrontation. Emotion clouds judgment. "You're right," I replied coldly. "I am a soldier." Then I walked to the hallway closet, grabbed our bags, and headed for the door. My mother finally spoke. "You're seriously leaving over this?" I looked directly at her. "No. I'm leaving because I finally understand who you people are." Lightning flashed behind me as Lily and I walked into the storm again, this time together. And I swore none of them would ever hurt her again. We checked into a roadside motel 30 miles away. "You know your father has high blood pressure. Stress could kill him." A neighbor contacted me after hearing rumors about the incident. My father called screaming, "You're destroying this family." The judge shut that down immediately. But hearing Lily whisper, "I thought they didn't love me anymore," nearly broke me. And for the first time in my life, the favoritism toward Mason and Lily became their next target. That realization filled me with guilt, but also purpose. The cycle would end with me. 6 months later, Lily and I moved into a new home near the mountains. I knelt beside her. She stopped sleeping through the night entirely. Every loud sound startled her. Even the sound of heavy rain against the roof made her panic. One night, I found her sitting inside the bathroom tub with her hands over her ears. My heart shattered. Adults she trusted. The guilt weighed heavily on me. Bronze commendations. For years, those items reminded me of survival. I sat upright instantly. "Your father." Evelyn looked down at her coffee. When I drove home later that evening, the storm clouds gathering over the highway felt strangely familiar. It was criminal. But once court documents leaked online, the story exploded across social media. "Grandparents throw child into storm" became the headline everyone shared. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters camped outside my apartment building. Former neighbors contacted me with stories about my father's temper. Even old classmates admitted they'd always feared him. At school, parents whispered when I arrived. Some teachers stared at me with sympathy. Others looked uncomfortable. The question broke my heart. Angry. Beside her stood a tall woman shielding her with an umbrella while dark shadows watched from a house. My chest tightened painfully. That's how she saw my parents now. Monsters. The counselor studied me carefully. I was rebuilding mine too. "I don't want Grandpa to know where we live." Because I had never told her he might try to find us. Military conditioning never truly disappears. Another sound. He looked cornered. Still, he refused responsibility. But outside the courthouse, my mother approached me quietly. When danger threatens family, training never switches off. The financial fraud investigation had officially become criminal. Some people break others because they're broken themselves. But an 8-year-old shouldn't carry that burden. So I kissed her forehead gently and said. She leaned against my shoulder silently. And I silently promised myself something else. No matter how badly my parents collapsed, I would never let their bitterness poison Lily's heart. 3 months later, a letter arrived. Handwritten. From my father. I almost threw it away unopened. But curiosity won. Then I laughed quietly in disbelief. Because it clarified everything. My father would never change. The air smelled fresh after rain. Snow covered the sidewalks outside our townhouse community, and for the first time in months, life felt almost normal. Lily had started sleeping through the night again. She laughed more. She even stopped checking the windows whenever rain clouds appeared. It happened on a Thursday evening after Lily's therapy appointment. I was unloading groceries from the trunk when instinct prickled across the back of my neck, that familiar military awareness that warns you before your brain fully understands danger. But his posture gave him away. Hired by my father. This was no longer about pride or anger. I frowned slightly. Knew what? And now the pattern was obvious. I started thinking like a soldier preparing for final engagement. 2 days later, another surprise arrived. She always needed someone to protect, Mason said. The storm. This had never been random cruelty. But once the judge heard the recording, take the child away, and Isabella folds. Mason sat rigid beside their attorney. The second she saw me smile, she ran straight into my arms. For the first time in nearly a year, I truly meant it. Christmas morning arrived quietly. For the first time in my life, there were no tense family dinners, no criticism hidden beneath fake smiles, and no walking on eggshells around my father's temper. Just peace. Lily sat cross-legged beside the tree in fuzzy red pajamas, while snow drifted softly outside our townhouse windows. The scent of cinnamon rolls filled the kitchen, and warm yellow lights glowed across the living room. Simple. Safe. Normal. I almost didn't recognize what normal felt like anymore. Mommy, can I open the big one now? Lily asked excitedly. I laughed softly. You've been staring at it for an hour. Go ahead. She tore through the wrapping paper and gasped. A telescope. Her smile lit the entire room. For weeks, she had talked about wanting to learn about stars after her science teacher introduced astronomy in class. Watching her excitement felt like medicine for wounds I still carried inside. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. My stomach tightened immediately. I almost ignored it, but military instincts warned me otherwise. Then breathing. Slow. Heavy. And finally, my father's voice. You think you've won. You violated the restraining order, I said calmly. No, I answered coldly. You did that yourselves. He ignored me completely. You always destroy everything you touch, Isabella. For years, words like that would have shattered me. Not anymore. And suddenly my father sounded small. Pathetic. You're alone now, he snapped bitterly. No, I replied quietly. I'm finally free. Then I hung up. Immediately, I reported the call to police. But afterward, I didn't feel afraid. For the first time in my life, I realized my father no longer had power over me emotionally. The storm inside him no longer controlled the weather inside me. 3 days after Christmas, Claire showed up unexpectedly. Alone. She looked terrible. No makeup. Red eyes. Hands shaking from the cold. I need to talk to you, she whispered. Every instinct screamed not to trust her. But something about her expression stopped me from slamming the door immediately. What do you want? Claire glanced around nervously before speaking. Mason's losing control. My pulse slowed into focused calm instantly. What happened? He drinks constantly now, she admitted quietly. Your father keeps blaming him for everything falling apart. Part of me wanted to feel satisfaction. Instead, I mostly felt exhausted. Claire swallowed hard. He smashed a mirror last night because investigators froze another account. I stayed silent. Then she said something unexpected. I don't think he ever meant for things to go this far. Anger flashed through me instantly. He threw my child into a storm. Claire flinched. I know. No, I corrected sharply. You watched it happen. Tears filled her eyes immediately. For several long seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, she whispered, I think your father manipulated all of us. That sentence hit harder than I expected. Because deep down, I already knew it was true. Manipulators create environments where cruelty feels normal, where fear becomes family tradition. Claire slowly reached into her purse and handed me folded papers. Bank records. Emails. Private notes involving my father's financial crimes. But trauma doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. For months, I had focused entirely on protecting Lily. I needed help too. Mason vanished 2 weeks later. Voicemails flooded my inbox. Back. At 3 a.m., I checked Lily's room for the fourth time. She slept peacefully beneath glowing star stickers on the ceiling, completely unaware of the darkness still circling around us. I stood there watching her quietly when one terrifying realization settled into my chest. Desperate people don't think rationally. And Mason had lost everything. The call came at sunrise. Police located Mason at an abandoned hunting cabin deep in the mountains. Armed. Drunk. Emotionally unstable. The moment officers said those words, old military instincts slammed back into place. Deeply tired. I almost refused to open the door. But something stopped me. Maybe curiosity. Maybe pity. She sat silently at my kitchen table while nervously twisting her wedding ring. Finally, she whispered, "Your father blames me now. He says I failed the family." A hollow laugh escaped her throat. For the first time in my life, I saw fear in my mother's eyes too. Real fear. Then she shocked me completely. "I should have protected you when you were little." The words hit like physical force. Ever. Tears filled her eyes slowly. "He treated you harder than Mason because you challenged him." I stared at her silently. "You were strong," she whispered. "And he hated losing control." Every childhood memory suddenly rearranged itself inside my mind. The criticism. The emotional punishment. The favoritism. Not random cruelty. Control. My mother looked toward Lily's bedroom quietly. "When he threw her outside, I saw your face instead." Then I remembered Lily crying in the storm. "You still let it happen," I said quietly. My mother lowered her head. "I know. And sometimes regret arrives far too late to repair the damage." The therapist asked me a question I wasn't prepared for. "What would healing look like for you?" I stared at her office window for a long time before answering. "I don't know." And that was the truth. For months, survival became my only focus. Protect Lily. Stop the threats. Stay alert. But survival isn't the same as living. The therapist nodded gently. Because for most of my life, it was. Childhood with my father trained me for hypervigilance long before the military ever did. That realization unsettled me deeply. Soldiers learn survival skills during war. I learned mine at home first. "Mommy? Yeah. Do you still feel scared sometimes?" Children always ask the hardest questions. I brushed her hair carefully behind her ear. "Yes," I admitted softly. "Even soldiers?" I smiled faintly. "Especially soldiers." She thought about that quietly before hugging my arm. The economy. Prison time. He simply stared at me with cold hatred while deputies escorted him away. The clip aired nationwide 2 nights later. Thousands of messages poured in afterward from parents, veterans, abuse survivors, and even grandparents. One message stayed with me most. Simple words. But they mattered. Because too many children grow up unheard. Lily deserved better than that. By early spring, rain returned to Colorado. The first storm hit during dinner. Thunder rolled softly outside while rain tapped against the windows. I froze automatically. So did Lily. For several long seconds, silence filled the kitchen. Then Lily slowly reached for my hand. "It's okay," she whispered. Emotion caught painfully in my throat. Outside, lightning flashed across the sky. But this time, nobody screamed. Nobody threatened us. Little by little, fear loosened its grip. And suddenly I realized how much had changed. The frightened little girl hiding from storms was gone. Strength isn't surviving the storm. She shook her head slowly. Not like before. It was awareness. And I recognized that mindset too well. She deserved a childhood free of survival instincts. Nothing is never nothing. The next morning, I went with Daniel to the abandoned office building that once belonged to my father's company. Broken chairs. When we accessed it, my chest tightened. They had hidden something before everything collapsed. I looked at Daniel. The question wasn't emotional. "Why do you think that?" She looked down. "He was standing outside again," she whispered. But this time, he wasn't alone. But the deeper we went into the files, the worse it got. Checking cameras. And he was escalating again. Within 20 minutes, Daniel and two other veterans arrived. Outside, motion sensors triggered twice. We reviewed footage. Empty sidewalks. Moving shadows. False alarms. But I knew better. People who are unstable don't always announce themselves directly. They test. Probe. Wait. By sunrise, nothing had happened. But I didn't relax. Her mind had pulled her back into fear. But gradually, her breathing slowed. Or just delayed the storm's return. At 4:03 a.m., every alarm in the house went off simultaneously. Motion detected. Daniel's voice came through the radio instantly.